Right, so incredibly, it would seem we're back to Partygate again. There's more new revelations once again come out regarding Boris Johnson breaking lockdown rules whilst we all followed them during the pandemic, whilst also doing something so stupid, so monumentally daft and ridiculous it beggars belief, but I'll come on to that one in a moment. It's old news now, many of you might be saying, though. The Tories, his loyalists, certainly are saying that. They're crying it's old news about the Johnson Partygate scandal. He paid a fine, his hangers-on jeer. He's already being investigated by Parliament. Isn't that enough? Leave poor Boris alone, his most ardent supporters plead. But here's the thing. Such as the backlog in dealing with lockdown breaches, so many of them have there been around the country, so inept or understaffed are our police forces, people are still being issued with fines to this day. So if others are still getting punished now, why should Johnson be let off the hook? Has he not enjoyed a lifetime of basically doing that, getting away with doing whatever he likes? His chickens are coming home to roost at last, and this is one more rotten egg being thrown into the mix. The latest issue centres around a Murdoch Times exclusive, it has to be said, demonstrating the Tories and Johnson are definitely no longer the chosen ones of serial election result engineer Rupert Murdoch. I think I can get away with saying that. He does like to brag about his publications winning elections, after all. Anyway, the Times exclusive, which also makes you wonder if they've been sat on the story until such time as to benefit that rag by releasing it at this moment in time. Johnson already having played the, oh look, Carrie's pregnant again card, of course, so he can't hide behind that nugget, centres around at least one new incidence of rule breaking, but this time at the Prime Minister's grace and favour country house of Chequers, where his ministerial diary featured visits by friends and family during a time such activity was prohibited. So how come we know about all of this now then, Damo, you might be thinking? And this is where Johnson's unique combination of greed and deception, as well as complete and utter stupidity, has been his undoing. As we all know, Johnson is facing a parliamentary investigation by the Privileges Committee over whether he misled Parliament regarding whether he knowingly breached lockdown rules. This is being funded by us, the taxpayer, to the tune currently of some £245,000. That's how much Johnson is costing us all to date to defend him against all of his lying and try to save his parliamentary career. A job, frankly, he isn't bothering to turn up for these days anyway, too busy touring the US on the speech circuit, having racked up a total of some £5 million in so doing, allowing him to buy a £3.8 million luxury pad, and is currently about to give another speech in Las Vegas. But we have to pick up the bill for his legal tab. Greed on steroids, on the take and on the make, ought to be the phrase that goes on Johnson's gravestone, but so should greedy to the point of stupid, because by asking for the public purse to take care of his legal costs, he's come unstuck in the most hilarious example of karma I've seen in ages. You see, by getting the public to take care of this financial matter for him to pay his legal bills via the Cabinet Office, he's unwittingly provided the very evidence needed to bring about these new charges. Because as part of his case, in order to build his defence, Johnson handed over his private ministerial diary from his time at Chequers, and the lawyers, as part of the evidence review for Johnson's case, examined this, discovered entries they felt warranted running past the Cabinet Office upon conducting their disclosure review, where all evidential findings were made clear, so the Cabinet Office were fully appraised of every stage of preparing the case. They found reference to these entries. The lawyers had decided they were above board and weren't breaches of COVID regulations, but the Cabinet Office itself decided otherwise. And in line with the Civil Service Code, these new findings have been passed on to both the Met Police, since it regards the then Prime Minister, resident in number 10 Downing Street as he ordinarily was, therefore on their patch, but also to Thames Valley Police as they cover Chequers. If it had just gone to the Met, I wouldn't hold my breath, anything would be done, but two police forces? It's a little bit harder to bury now, isn't it? Johnson has bleated that the Cabinet Office should have checked these entries, that this is all a politically motivated stitch-up, but that would be against the Civil Service Code. They believed criminality had been committed. This all took place over 2020 and 2021, when the strictest rules were in place and needs to be investigated. Therefore, the correct action was taken, and the police have been involved. Needless to say, the Privileges Committee, who were due to meet this week, now won't be. New evidence come to light and all of that. With all the money Johnson has been making, he could have paid his own legal fees. If he had, he wouldn't have had lawyers required to submit his ministerial diary entry. Heck, His own lawyers may not have even asked for the diary full stop, or if they had and spotted the entries, well, they might have been able to bury it then, wouldn't they? They'd be being paid to help Johnson get off after all. But when the public purse becomes involved, our money has to be wisely spent. Checks and balances have to be made. Things need to be adequately scrutinised to get the right result, not just Johnson's desired result. And as such has left himself open to a heck of a lot more scrutiny than he might otherwise have had. Johnson is now apparently threatening to sue the government for handing over extracts of his diary to the police without telling him, absolute balloon that he is. He might want to think again, though, because he might have been dropped right in it, and by none other than his own sister. Rachel Johnson was a guest the other day of LBC presenter Ben Kentish. She said in response to a question, "It is probably time to move on from Partygate. However, I am not one to call into question the shoe leather and elbow grease that has been demonstrated by our reporters. They do a fantastic job, and whether I like or my brother likes the results of their efforts is immaterial. If he has questions to answer, he will definitely be answering them. I see the family name has been brought into it slightly, and all I will say on that point, and then hand over to others, is that as far as I'm aware, all the rules were followed whenever I went to Chequers, which wasn't often enough." Well, so how often and when were you going there to Chequers then, Rachel? Because if you're thinking you might be cropping up in this ministerial diary, this covered the period 2020 to 2021, when some of the most stringent pandemic rules were in place. Now, Rachel Johnson neither works for government nor lives at Chequers. Sure, in normal times you go to visit family, but this wasn't normal times, was it? They really are quite the piece of work, the Johnsons, aren't they? As much as LBC should be crucified for letting her come on to defend Johnson, she's been an absolute gift here, putting into doubt all of Bozo's protestations and fake ire, knowing he's shot himself in the foot, and worse, if he hadn't been so greedy, he probably would have avoided all of this, and we, the public, would have been none the wiser. Why did LBC not ask her why she was visiting during lockdown? She said all the rules were followed whilst she was there, except you following the rule about not visiting family, perhaps. Eh, Rachel? Will she crop up in the evidence? Is she in the diary? Who knows? But she's definitely not helped the case for Johnson here. Lockdown rules ended in February 2022, just after the Omicron variant had cropped up. Johnson himself was gone 7 months later in the September. So unless all of those visits of Rachel's were after February 2022, she almost certainly broke lockdown rules herself visiting Chequers. Lockdown rules in the southeast of the country were amongst the most prolonged and stringent going nationwide. LBC missed a massive open goal by not following up on this, preferring instead to just chuckle along with Rachel Johnson. Now, her brother can whinge and moan all he likes, but he's been caught out because of his own greed and his own stupidity, and he only has himself to blame for this new evidence coming to light. And his next turn in front of the Privileges Committee might be just as annoying to him, if not more so than it was last time, which, after you've liked, shared and subscribed to the channel, now you've reached this point, because this is where I make my shameless sales pitch for you to do so. So stick with me, enjoy the hundreds of other videos I have, not least of which this one here, where Johnson forgot something else that might contribute to his undoing, and I'll see you on the next video. Cheers, folks.